I shall get started. All right, good afternoon. I'm going to call to order the City of Burlington Board of Finance on Monday, April 14th. It's 5:05 p.m. Our first item on the agenda is the agenda. Is there a motion?
Move to adopt the agenda.
Moved by Councilor Barlow. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilor Carpenter. Any discussion before we vote? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion carries unanimously. On to our second item, which is public forum. This is the practice of the Board of Finance to first go into the room to see if anyone is here in person to address Board of Finance, and then we will go online. And first, looking in the room. That's one person who would like to, and we have about the same 2 minutes. Yeah. All right, I'll let you know. Oh, it's fine.
I'm on the agenda still.
Your item is still on, but your public forum, if you want to say any comments about it.
Okay, so basically I'm just gonna talk about it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I might need 3 minutes. Mayor looks at it. Hello, everyone. Oh, am I talking?
If you stand right here, then people will be able to see. Everybody can see you.
Okay.
Either is fine, that's fine. But you want to face this way if you want the camera.
Oh, you know,
I'm always on the camera. Yo, this is Bruce was from Southside Chicago.
Alright, so anyways, I'm gonna say some wonderful people. How y'all doing today? Beautiful day in the neighborhood, I wish you great. It was cold yesterday, my fingers on it, I was a little cold yesterday. But anyway, so I'm Bruce Wilson, I am Art So Wonderful. We have a abatement program. All the murals you see around Burlington, like 70% of the murals are ours. The electrical box was created in 2010 by Art So Wonderful, and we still kind of in our partners in South Burlington. And so we curate all our murals and our graffiti. Like we did the one up top there, you over around customer, our honorable mayor's Emma, and somebody bombed. So we're gonna fix it. And so we're gonna fix our murals. We fixed all our murals in 2003. Everything we do with it. And the graffiti that you might see, there's some graffiti and it's gone. It's from Art So Wonderful. And I'm afraid the award from code enforcement office. We help us, I mean we help, I don't know we don't do, but you know, it's kids, but I'm sure it's you gotta be very right. But anyway, so what I'm here today is about we're continuing like Dorsey Lane right here. Let me quick man. Dorsey Lane, we're gonna make that a Art So Wonderful, we're gonna make it a public, I mean a worldwide beautiful attraction. I don't know if everybody's general partner for Art So Wonderful. So me and Ken I own it. But down this Dorsey Lane, if you go down there, you can see that murals are coming up and graffiti is disappearing. And so May 15th, we're gonna do a graffiti removal program. In partnership with the city council, my friend Ben, and Ward 6 and some other people, volunteers, Vermont State Troopers will be out there. I hope the mayor folks too out there. So a lot of people will be out there just kind of help us get that graffiti up down on Dorsey Lane so we can make it beautiful with muralists from people we know from Art So Wonderful. And so that's gonna be for me in my little tiny Northwestern University break. It's gonna be a public attraction. When people come around, world attraction, people come in and say, damn, what's going on this Dorsey Lane? See what's going on. And see all these beautiful murals we're gonna be going on to, and so what we're gonna do on May 15th is clean up those murals. We're gonna clean up the graffiti on the walls. Champlain College administrators, their administrative day, May 15th, you have the last year. So all the directors and it's like 12 of them. Assistant directors from Champlain all come out and help us. And they're gonna come out, and it's gonna be there. We're gonna do a cable shows out there. Joe Shannon's gonna be on that cable show. And so Becca's gonna be out there for Ward 6. And so and a lot of other people is gonna be out there. You know, we have a lot of tons of people gonna be out there because we're promoting this event.
It's about 2 minutes, Ben.
Okay.
Yeah, that's about 2 minutes.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, so basically, what we wanna do is, have, cause all our network media is gonna be out there, including Art So Wonderful cable show, we do CCTV. We want, I don't care if you got a paintbrush or not, come out there and support that. We ain't about to, we tired of this graffiti downtown Burlington. We're tired of it, you know, I'm tired of it, cause every time they go around, I paint over something, and cause we curated everything, I can go back and paint over if somebody, what they call bomb the wall. So if you really got time, come out, we're gonna have a flatbread pizza, and we're gonna have live entertainment out there. It's gonna be so fun. It's gonna be from 9 to 11, and then break from Wonderful. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Bruce, appreciate it.
Oh, that's it, man.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Is anyone else in room who'd like to address board opinion? Seeing none in the room, we'll go online. Is anyone online? Yes, former Councilor Busher. Good evening, former Councilor Sharon Busher, you are up.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I'm going to focus my comments to items on your agenda tonight. One has to do with Cambrian Rise offset project. And my question is, hopefully this will, I really wasn't positive about the answer to this question. Will people have access to the grave sites at Lakeview Cemetery during that project? There was reference that some of the grave sites could be disturbed, hopefully not. And that brings me to the second question. Will anybody during the project from the city go to see if there has been disruption? My concern is that a family member might come and be really upset if something like that happened. And I don't know how you'll get that information out to people who have loved ones buried in that section, but I'm hoping that that communication will be clear so people can anticipate that. So that's the first comment. Second comment has to do with the ELI grants, which I'm really happy that Robin's Nest is going to add 4 new slots for much needed childcare. I was surprised that that grant funding could go not only to creation of slots and affordability of childcare, but could go to infrastructure or like the bathroom repairs. That somewhat surprised me, and I don't know if that's happened before. I tried to find that out on my own and I failed. So that's the second question. And the third is just a statement with the allocation of 2022A bonds. I certainly support how you're going to use the residual monies that are left from the Memorial Auditorium allocation of $1 million. That 600 and some odd thousand were not spent. So the sadness here is that this is not owned by this administration or this council. I own some of this, so many people own some of this, but the sadness is that even that small allocation of $1 million was not spent on this structure. And we have such a long history of neglecting that structure. And so that's a lot of sadness for me. And that sadness of neglect has led to potentially the sale or the long time lease on our gateway block, where someone else will control our vision for that block. And it will also, I think we've failed the veterans who the memorial was created for. So there's a lot of sadness in this reallocation, and understanding and happy where it's going, but I don't feel proud about any aspect of what's happened with Memorial. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Is anyone else online who'd like to speak to the Board of Finance or any public comment? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and close public comment and we'll move on to our next item, which is our consent agenda. Is there ever show on the consent agenda? By Councilor Carpenter. Second by Councilor Travers. Don't sneeze because I will take that as a motion. Is there any further discussion on the consent agenda before you? Councilor Travers.
I know this is not debate, but I just want to take a moment to thank Bruce for being here as indicated. There is a request for council initiative funds on the consent agenda for our so wonderful post cleanup in May, on May 15th, across the street from City Hall. And so glad to have that request here and look forward to supporting the consent agenda. And thank you to Bruce and all the community partners for being part of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Travers. Any further comments before we vote on the consent agenda? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to our deliberative items, I'm going to note that for the item 4.1 and 4.2, I have conflict of interest with both items. I have a child who attends the childcare center that item 4.1 is attached to, and the item 4.2 is a matter of direct financial interest to my spouse, Megan Moyer, and this will create an indirect conflict of interest for me. So I'm going to recuse myself from participation in the discussion of both matters, and will not be voting on either of the matters. And I'm going to pass the invisible gavel to CEO Shad, who will take over, and I'm going to depart, and someone hopefully will text me when we get to item 4.3. Thank you. Excellent. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, Director Omotswari, why don't you give us a brief overview about issue 4.1?
Yes, so the city's early learning initiative, it utilizes pilot funds from our utility pilot funds to support the childcare industry and to help expand and stabilize high quality childcare spaces. Part of that program, in addition to tuition assistance, is also in the form of capacity grants. These, we have historically been giving these out for years. And just to address a comment from Public Forum, they have historically been used for infrastructure updates to allow for better usage of space, expanded usage of space, and so that more individuals can be accommodated. This grant is for $30,000. It's going to Robin's Nest Children's Center, which is in a Champlain Housing Trust building, and the Champlain Housing Trust is also paying for part of the renovations. And Rebecca Reese, who is our early learning initiative manager, can give a little more insight into the actual application.
So Robin's Nest applied to be able to bring some funds to the table as well. They've been working with Champlain Housing Trust to do some much needed upgrades to their facility. Some of the funding will go to the bathroom, the main bathroom of the program. It has not been touched since the program opened in 1985. So this will update some fixtures and make it way more accessible for the little kids. It's going to change out size toilets for little mini toddler toilets. It will address some drainage issues that are no longer needed, cap those off so they're not accessible and not creating tripping hazards. It will also be making the sink more accessible as well, bringing it down to a child's level. The big part of the grant will then also be adding a fully plumbed in sink and dishwasher to the rear classroom. This space has always been available for the program, but it's never been able to have licensed enrollment spots in that space because it didn't have a plumbed in sink. So adding that infrastructure in the rear room will allow them to add spots, initially up to 4 toddler spots out of that, and potentially more to grow in the future. Excellent, thank you. Does the board have any questions? Are we ready for a motion? And I'm noting that Councillor Newbeeser is joining us online. Yes, Councillor Carpenter.
Was on the committee, but I'd be happy to move that as written.
Great, is there a second? Councillor Travers, any questions or comments before we take a vote? Yes.
Thank you, and thank you very much for bringing this request forward. I would, as you've noted, I just want to confirm, particularly in response to something we heard in public forum, that the reason why I am supportive of this is because the contribution to these capital needs is allowing the program to open up additional slots for preschoolers. And early on in the ELI programs initiative, similar monies were actually put towards a new children's bathroom at my own kids' preschool connected to the Hobby Zedek synagogue.
Yep.
And that was essential, right, to them being able to get off the ground to expand the programming there. So it was great there. I'm sure it will be great here, and I look forward to supporting.
Thanks. Great, any other final questions or comments?
All right, let's move this along. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, and moving on to item 4.2, the DPW Division Director Water Resources Compensation Review and Market Factor Recommendation. Director Spencer, why don't you give us a quick overview?
Thank you all for the opportunity. You're going to get a lot of me this evening with 5 items on the agenda. Thank you for your patience. This first one, I've been working with the administration for 2 different administrations for a couple of years, evaluating the compensation for my 4 division directors in the Department of Public Works and comparing the salaries to market conditions. Remaining competitive with the market, we ensure that these professional management positions at the top of each division are critical and ensure kind of ongoing high performance and stability underneath my leadership, which is annually appointed. So stability of the division directors underneath the appointee is critical to handling our complex day-to-day work. This position in front of you now is for Water Resources Division Director. Water Resources are our largest division, over 60 employees. And as you all well know, it's on the front end of multi-year capital reinvestments, the size of which have not been seen in decades. We took a look at a number of different compensation studies. We contracted with Gallagher Flynn to do a few locally. We have used industry compensation studies and taken an average of those to develop recommendations. 2 of the DPW division director positions were relatively in line with industry pay. 2 of the positions were not. And I'm here today to ask your support for the 2 that are not. And we are proposing market factor pay bands for both of those positions in line with our findings. Specifically, for the Division Director of Water Resources, as you'll see in the memo, we are proposing a market factor pay band and a placement at step 5, down from the current step 7. That is due to the market factor policy the board, the council just approved recently that gives us a pathway for how we step place when a market factor is done. I do want to add that part of this request does include a retroactive pay. This item was originally scheduled to come to the Board of Finance and Council on December 9th after a long gestation period. But due to a number of factors, including just making sure that we had a clear policy on which to be making this recommendation, we paused until that policy was reviewed by the Human Resources Committee and then the full City Council. And so as a result, I am recommending a retro payback to December 9th, 2024, when this was originally planned to come to council. I want to thank Lynn and the HR team and Catherine as well, the CAO, for their active involvement in this. So the proposed salary increase for this position is $16,162.07. The amount of this increase has been included in the FY 27-25 budget, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Okay, what questions does the board have? Yes, Councilor Cambrian.
I only have a question, more comments. And in particular on the retroactive pay. We need to speed this process up, I guess, is what I'm saying, and I appreciate department heads are extremely busy. I appreciate the proposal about the market adjustment master language, but I think we've done lots of retroactive pay increases, and I just think it doesn't look well for us, and it would be my hope, particularly at the department head level, because it's not governed by contract. When we appoint everybody each year, we could be on top of the pay grade they ought to be at. And not let this language for all of us, I think, for our budget, for the person deserving the raise or not. And that's just an editorial comment, I guess.
I appreciate that editorial comment, and I have seen, in my 5 years here, we have been trying to get a handle on this, and I would say with non-union staff, it is very unusual these days for us to put forward a request for retro pay. In this case, I want us give Chapin some kudos for really working carefully with staff and holding the line as long as possible. There was months, if not years, before we got to December 9th, when we were like, no retro, we're moving forward, but we're sort of all in one accord. And then by the time we got to December 9th, it no longer felt realistic or like it was the right thing to do. People were already operating at this higher level. Excuse me. And at that point, we realized we needed this new policy, and then we needed the HR committee and sort of all these other steps. So at that point, I think we were a little bit ahead of our skis, but I guess I want you to know like that we as department heads, and speaking for the mayor, since I'm holding the gavel, I know that this is important to her, and we will continue to try and do better with this. Yes, Councilor Reeser.
It's my first meeting and I was late, so sorry to
Welcome.
Happens.
start the question here. I guess, could you just speak to the thinking around, it's obviously a tight budget season. We're having conversations around other critical services, and I'm certainly thinking about other critical services within DPW. And we're proposing an increase to a director role, which may very well be justified, and there is solid justification in this memo. But now, given the tight financial, and I understand your drawings, but support us radically in general fund. So why now, specifically, I guess, why this fiscal year? And I understand this is sort of over the last couple of years, but it just feels like
Thank you. I acknowledge that we are not flush with cash, and this is an enterprise fund where we have seen very successful efforts to bring in other funding for our capital work and for even our program work like industrial pollution prevention. We are dealing with an annual budget here of $16 million, or actually nearer to 20 these days, sorry. And then multi-million dollars of capital. This is a position where we have to remain competitive. I'll tell you, the last time I advertised for this position, I've now been in this role long enough that I've hired each of my direct reports. And the last time we hired for this position, we had 2 candidates. And we hired one of those. And we should not be in a position where we are not an attractive employer. This is too important of a position dealing with our drinking water and 3 regulated utilities where we have to be competitive. I agree that we need to double down on finding other monies for our work so that we can minimize ratepayer impact. And I'm confident that the leadership in this division right now is accomplishing.
Wow. Are we ready for a motion? Yes.
I would move that the recommended action on the civic market. Unless you want me to do.
Is there a second? Others? Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed?
So I guess nobody from the audience can say anything. I'm over from Clear Council and Clearwater and Climate Council, and that's very important. I would say what she was doing. I had to say it to represent Well, let's see, from the city of
Excellent.
Clearwater.
Thank you, but no, you gotta say it for the next public forum. But that passes on a vote of 3-1. Thank you very much. And I will text the mayor, and while we get her back, let's move to item 4.3, which is also DPW, another market factor compensation for the city engineer.
Thank you. What I said previously stands for this one. I will save the time. I will hit the high point specific to this position, which is this position is the Division Director for Technical Services and also serves as the city engineer. This position also has struggled to attract candidates. We had a recent opening in this position about a year ago. And similar, I don't recall if, I don't remember the exact number, but it was in the handful of applicants for this very important position. The recommendation here is that the proposed salary is $132,511.85, which is an increase of $22,432. The asterisk here is important to identify, which is that this division is a billable division, and this division bills for its work largely from grants, also from TIF or other sources of funding, such that an increase in pay rate also generates an increase in billed revenue that we get back in. So this $22,000 impact will be less than that in cumulative once we bill against this work. And I'm happy to answer questions.
So we're on item 4.3, welcome Councilor Newbeezer.
And this is a little repeat, a little bit in response to Councilman Newbeezer's comments. Way out of the room, I just said I had concerns about the timing and taking so long with retroactive. And I'm gonna sort of say that again here and again, particularly in response to Councilor Newbeezer, that I hope when we get to our budget finally, that everybody is at the level they should be, because I think Councilor Newbeezer's comment was concerns about our budget, perhaps cutting. We should never do our cuts on the back of a particular employee and underpay them. So let's make sure they're paid adequately, and we know that by July 1 and budget for it, because we are gonna, I think, have to make cuts. And again, I don't want to do it on the back of a particular employee. So I want to make sure they're wherever they should be at, both union and non-union, so that we can clearly then say, this is what we gotta pay you. And if we don't have enough in our pot, then we're gonna have to do something else, perhaps eliminate another position, I don't know, but perhaps just again, everybody.
Thank you, Councilor Carpenter.
I think I have a similar comment, which is just that I do think it's justified. I appreciate point and it's well taken. But it's just such a crunch year, and I'm my first board finance meeting, but I am having trouble justifying to my own self, increasing top pay for folks who are doing important work and who deserve that pay. While also facing very tight fiscal realities in the budget. So I think I'm gonna vote against this one as well.
Any further comments on item 4.3? Seeing none, is there a motion?
Also, it's written to the question.
Motion as posted in City Clerk is moved by Councilor Carpenter. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilor Barlow. Any further discussion on the matter before we vote? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? And so the vote is 4-1. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chapin.
Yep.
Moving on to item 4.4, nowhere to go, except for Board of Finance tonight. Item 4.4 is authorization of the sidewalk reconstruction program project budget and construction project, again with the works. Welcome, everybody. It's a little overview.
Yes, hello, I'm Maddie Sender, a public works engineer, and I'm run by Christina Carignolisi, who is somewhat new to the team, for about, it's October.
You're the first person.
Yeah.
Hello, welcome.
So we're here to talk about the annual sidewalk reconstruction plan, so this is proposing 3 streets to be replaced, Hungerford, Howard, and North Ave. It's roughly half a mile of work. That is going to be supplemented with the Old North End Greenway work. That will be hardscaping features on the Old North End Greenway that are currently quick build materials. We did this to optimize mobilization and just try to get a better contract price overall. There was one bidder for the work, SD Ireland. This work in total will be supplemented by other sidewalk work throughout the city. Our right-of-way team does roughly 1 mile of sidewalk each year, and other capital improvement sidewalk work will add roughly 0.7 miles. This work was a product of the 2019 sidewalk inventory, which takes into account the condition of the sidewalk, as well as the activity and equity. So that's who's using the sidewalk, whether that be its proximity to parks or schools. It also takes in census information. And then on top of that, we do internal staff review, coordinate based on what other construction is happening in the city, and also do a review of resident concerns. That's it. If you guys have questions.
Thank you very much. Questions from the board? Councilor Carpenter.
Yeah, I can't remember to make a comment, but it came up through an email I think I sent Chapin, and concerns by neighbors about their sidewalk, their road, which is of course worse than everybody else's. And my comment really was just, can there be a clear way to find out who's on the docket? I understand things change. You know, how did you get there? And this sort of general sense of frustration. I know on the roadway with Hungerford, there were some neighbors that had expressed some concerns. They didn't understand the process. And I'm not saying good or bad, I'm sure. I just think the public is not very clear on why that sidewalk versus another sidewalk. And I just think we need more work on explaining the process and for people to comment on.
Yes. Let me start off by saying thank you, and yes, we can continue to improve our game on how we communicate. We did update the commission, I believe it was last year, on the activity and equity index, which we've added in to give this more than just a sidewalk condition index. I was pleased to be the first director to bring in kind of a citywide sidewalk condition index, but that is just data on the condition, not on how much it gets used. So we brought in that element. In addition, thanks to the capital planning director, Ashley Parker, we now have the map that shows the deteriorated sidewalk in the city. That's at least a first level, and can start identifying, at least people can see, hey, my sidewalk is understood to be in poor condition in the city. So that's a good first resource, but we can continue to look at how we get data out there that doesn't hamstring us to, you didn't do X when it's worse than Y, and we have to explain, we had to coordinate with a private development, or we had to do a traffic calming project that was in the queue and we were able to mobilize and do it at the same time. There's always nuance, but we're happy to try to be as kind of transparent as we can.
I'll just remind folks that that interactive map that we generated for the bond education element before Town Meeting Day is still active online. You can find it on the clerk treasurer's office. Also on
DPW website.
as
Yep.
well, and it's a dynamic map. We'll keep updating it so folks can get familiar with their neighborhood, with not only the sidewalks, but the other capital projects that we have in the queue, that we know we have in the queue, as well as, I'm assuming once you've updated or fixed them, you know, something flashing in celebration versus confetti or something on the I'm joking, but the map is meant to be dynamic and nothing. Council President.
Yes, and thank you for this, as always. It seemed like the previous ones please. I had a question about whether or not this isn't all of the sidewalk construction. This is just one big contract that SDR is going to do. Can you talk a little bit about how the other sidewalk repair, construction, merchant needs would be sort of prioritized?
So that's done through our right-of-way team, that extra mile that we do, through in-house crews, so that gives us a lot more flexibility. That's really to address the safety repairs that are short sections of sidewalk. Ireland is really good at doing long stretches of sidewalk for an entire block, so we try to give them these, continuous sections. We somewhat jump around on the block and skip good sections where we can, but for the most part, they get there, they're very efficient, they do all the work and then they leave. Our right-of-way crews give us a lot of flexibility to kind of hop around the city and address, 50 feet of sidewalk that totally deteriorated and the rest of the block is totally fine. So they're able to pivot very quickly, and we'll be posting all of the work that our in-house crews do on the construction portal in the coming weeks. And then there's other capital improvement projects such as the Parkway or Main Street that will add to that mileage as well.
Thank you.
The short lengths are put through the same calculus using the SCI sidewalk condition index overlaid with the activity score. So we do a data-driven process to get the projects.
Good questions.
Just on that, not that you don't have, I think it's a true question. Sort of primer on that would be helpful.
Yeah.
Just to, we've had enough calls from all of us about.
Yes.
About somebody saying, somebody's pro. And
Did a great PowerPoint for the commission. We'd be happy to share it.
I think something like that would be.
Mindful of what time it is, so I'm gonna keep us within unless there's further questions on this one.
I would make
Motion?
2 motions that are certified.
Thank you, Councilor Rollo. Is there a second? So Chavez, thank you. Any further discussion on the item 4.3 before we vote? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Christina. Moving on. At 4.4, I'm sorry. We're all following along, it's fine. Item 4.5, which is so many DPW items tonight. It's so
Still got me.
exciting. 4.5 is moving on to Rose Street and Cedar Street and VTrans TAP grant. All for DPW.
Thank you. Hi, Julia Sackman, Works Engineer. Here tonight to talk about the Rose and Cedar VTrans Transportation Alternatives Program grant that we found out we received recently. So this project will make transportation and stormwater improvements on Cedar Street and at the Rose and Cedar Street intersection. And it really represents a collaboration between a lot of the different teams at DPW. So the transportation side, we've been in conversation with the neighborhood for many, many years about improvements we can make at the Rose and Cedar intersection. There was a fatal crash in 2020 there, and one of the factors noted in the crash report was the epoxy surface of the raised intersection. So this project will remove the raised intersection and add curb extensions and one that is also a rain garden to the intersection. And then the stormwater team has a bunch of shovel-ready projects throughout the whole to install infiltration chambers and capture stormwater runoff to recharge the groundwater table and reduce the amount of pollutants making it to Lake Champlain. So when we realized we both had projects right within a block of each other, we thought it would be a good opportunity to go after some grant funding. It's an 80-20 split, so the city pays for 20% of the total cost, and it's a really helpful way for us to fund a big project like this on kind of a smaller neighborhood street like Cedar that does need some attention and love that we haven't gotten around to yet. But it also ended up coinciding with the paving team wanting to repave Cedar Street. So though we can't pay for maintenance with the grant, the stormwater work is happening over a whole block, and so that block will be repaved, and then we'll be coordinating with the contractor to have the paving as a non-participating item, so it's kind of one construction project for the neighborhood, and it's not like we're coming back a couple months later or a year later to pave after we've done something. So the total grant amount is $750,000, and the city's local match for that is $150,000, which is being split between the transportation budget, the stormwater capital budget, and a small amount from paving, where we are paving over the stormwater work.
Maybe one just closing piece is, yes, we're here for the budget amendment approval. I directed staff to come to here for also the $150,000 local match. The purchasing policy says $150,000 and less does not need to come to the Board of Finance. But given that there may be cost increases in the future, given the inflationary environment we're in, I wanted to be transparent with you on what we're doing, so that if there are future requests, you will understand that the project exists and won't be surprised.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Comments?
Well, I can just ask a follow-up question on that point that you just made there, Jacob. With respect to $150,000 local match, in terms of whether or not that would need to come to the Board of Finance or Council under our new procurement policies, is that because there are monies budgeted for this already? Or, I mean, I guess, so I think we're gonna be sort of feeling out how this new procurement policy is working, right? And I think from my perspective, you know, if the council has budgeted monies already to a pool that we know is potentially going to go to projects, but if we haven't budgeted funds for that already, then my assumption has been that it would still need to come to the Board of Finance and City Council. I guess what I'm wondering is there already a pool of funds available for this? I'm just trying to sort of play this out for future projects to understand how the procurement policy is going to work. Maybe it's not a question for you as much as it is for Catherine, so.
The contracts, the current policy in the purchasing policy allows the mayor to sign contracts up to $150,000, and or with city funds of $150,000. This is right on the edge of that, and yes, the funds are already budgeted. If there's a non-neutral budget amendment, then absolutely this has to come to the Board of Finance and Council. So, Catherine.
That's right.
Hopefully,
Yes,
that's the great, because
yes, you did.
I have to live under that policy every day.
So I guess I just want to be sort of clear about that, right? Like if we have a line item for street repair projects where we have put this money in there, that money is available, then I agree. If it's within the procurement policy, then we can sign off on that. But if it is anything that requires a budget adjustment, which this motion does include, my expectation is still that the budget adjustment itself would still need to come back to the Board of Finance and Council, even if signing off on the contract is within the mayor's authority and the procurement policy.
If we have to move money around that gets to that level, that's right.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Even, you say that gets to that level, like I would think even if this was like a $50,000 contract, if there are no monies budgeted to a fund to pay for it, that we would have to make a budget adjustment to move the $50,000 over into a fund that it can be taken out of.
But if we have to move $50,000 around, that does not need to come to you. Only $150,000 needs to come to you. If it is budget neutral and it is within the same department. That is what the new procurement policy says, and I don't want to get us too weighed down,
Okay.
but I've answered your question, and we should probably.
I think we should take another look at it. Because
Yes.
Okay, well, let's not go.
It's a great sidebar conversation, let's clarify.
Yes,
I
it's
think
good.
I
largely
love
it's-
to nerd out on the policy.
Yes, she does. And this is largely about the amounts that were driving this procurement policy and making sure we didn't have to bring stuff to the Board of Finance that was small enough, that was within the purview of either the department itself or within the mayor, but certainly when it hits over 150, including money in general, or certainly, consenting, agreeing, and that is certainly something we bring forward in finance.
Okay. Right,
Okay.
so I would like to follow up on that, and then I just do have one comment specific to this project itself, and sort of just echoing what Councilor Carpenter was saying earlier, which is that I think it would be helpful as well for us to get a primer of sorts as to the process by which the department decides to apply for grant fundings and sort of which projects are going to be available for that, because by the time, this seems like a very commendable project, which I'm going to support, right? But by the time it comes to us, it's presented to us as this project has been approved and there's all these monies that are available for it, right? Where it sort of puts us in this impossible position of, how could we say no, right? If we thought there was another, more deserving project, because those free monies, at least from the city's perspective, are just out there already. So, I would be curious to understand the process that goes into, and I don't know if the Public Works Commission gets involved with that, for example, or if it's a decision that's made at the department level as to deciding which priorities you're going to follow. But, by the time it gets to us, it's sort of like, well, of course, we're going to support it because it's been approved and there's this money hanging out there. Right?
Yes, largely the capital committee engages in conversation around interdepartmental priorities, and then the department works with the grants team to select projects based on the criteria of the grant, what would be a good fit. Happy to talk more later, and we can do a written primer as well.
I said, I'm sorry, I know we're coming up at 6 o'clock here, right? But there are certain grants that actually require that the city have approved the city reaching out, even applying for the grant. I think it's nice that we had to get sort of some say in that. So maybe we could have a discussion about, even if it remains within your control, some process by which we're updated as to what grants you're seeking and what's going on. So earlier on.
Which is what we're doing with 505 Riverside tonight, and that's why we're here.
Right.
I'll briefly say it probably makes sense for us in the future Board of Finance to have a general grants conversation with the board. There's a lot of moving factors, especially with federal grants that sometimes are federal to state and then state to us. There's a lot of moving parts, and we've been working within the administration to get clarity on what grants we're going for, knowing that there's risk out there now in terms of what might be frozen, and also just in general wanting to make sure that our granting is in line with what the city's priorities are, and that we aren't necessarily, that we're just coordinated and disciplined about what grants we're going for, and also mindful. It's pretty rare when it's free money, because there's usually local matches involved in most granting. So that is something that obligates the city for money to be spent on this versus something else. So we're happy to come back and talk more about grants of all kinds.
Great.
All right. With that, is there a motion on item 4.5?
I move to, there's a long motion that's listed on Civic Clerk, a 3-part motion, and I would move to, if acceptable to you, take the actions indicated on Civic
It
Clerk.
wasn't 5:53, Councilor Travis, I'd make you read the whole thing. Okay, so moved by Councilor Travis, is there a second? Second by Councilor Barlow, thank you. Any further discussion on item 4.5? We vote? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you, Julia. All right, moving on to 4.6, also DPW, Cambrian Rise, Stormwater Offset Project, MOU approval. Are you all done?
And no, we have actually Lindsay here, and promote her.
Yep, I've already been promoted, so I'm here. Hi, everybody. Ashley Walenti. I am the water resources engineer handling this particular project. This is a motion, or this is a request to execute a memorandum of understanding between the DPW Water Resources Division, the Parks Department, and the development for Cambrian Rise to install stormwater infiltration systems on the Parks Department. So the development, Cambrian Rise, would procure the contractor, install the stormwater tanks, And then after a warranty period, the city water resources division would take it over for long-term maintenance goals. These stormwater tanks specifically were designed to handle more stormwater than our CSO offset policy requires of the Cambrian Rise division, which would allow us to remove even more stormwater off of a very constrained system in the north end. So we're hoping to execute that and then go through with the agreement.
Yeah, I think the only thing to add is that hearing the public comment earlier today about coordination with parks and cemetery, we will work with Cindy and the department to figure out how best to communicate with lot owners who are in that neighborhood in case there's some impact. But I do, oh, Cindy, you're here. Do you want to add to that?
No, I don't think we have anything more. The only thing I would add is this is something that's been in discussion for many, many years. And it's something the Cemetery Commission voted in favor of this happening. There's some enhancements that will happen to the front of the cemetery as part of this. And one of our Cemetery Commission members, back when we started discussing this, I think was in 2018, 2019, she just wanted to make sure that everything was in writing. So we've made sure that they've not done anything unless it was in writing. But they are in favor, and again, there'll be some nice improvements to the front of the cemetery office from happening from this. And DPW has committed to, taking a look at current conditions in the cemetery, just in case of any potential down the line stormwater impacts that we hadn't thought about. But they're definitely taking ownership to make sure that we're protecting our cemetery, and we'll just make sure that folks have access to the cemetery. There are 2 roads that go up and down. And I'm sure we can make sure that there's not an impact to folks having a chance to visit their loved ones.
Anything else before we open it up? Okay, so questions or comments from the board?
May be clear in the memos that I'm getting, but this is something that we, the city, need to do, or is this facilitated by the developer?
So the development has designed the system under the city's guidance. So Water Resources has inspected the design of this and signed off on everything. The developer will procure the contractor to actually install the stormwater system. And then following a 1-year warranty period and sign off by DPW Water Resources Division, we will take it over. The reason why we're doing this is because of the cost share aspect of it and how much additional stormwater these tanks will actually take off in excess of the additional wastewater that the Cambrian Rise development will be putting on that North Ave system.
Cambrian Rise needed to do a base mitigation.
Yeah.
We are buying an additional capacity to further improve the stormwater condition.
And that end of the cemetery has had water problems, right?
Yes, and
yes, and it'll take stormwater off of the North Ave corridor as well. So it'll take stormwater off of various areas throughout that North Ave area.
Parks has been a great player. Yeah. This solves a number of issues through this collaborative process, and I am very pleased with how this ended up.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay. Further comments or questions before we vote?
Just because I have to be really clear, I think I know the answer, but to the point of public comment, no one's loved ones are going to be impacted in the cemetery.
No.
We have a very, very clear guarantee for that.
The area in which these stormwater tanks will be installed are up within the gatehouse, so it's not like we are going down into the actual cemetery to install this infrastructure. This is up within the offices and the driveway right there along the North Ave corridor. And as Cindy had mentioned, we have taken the responsibility to ensure that the groundwater infiltration will not impact the cemetery itself either.
It is my understanding that over the years on occasion, the cemetery has been impacted. Flooding.
Right. So these will actually go down further into the
Better
groundwater
management.
system and help.
Stormwater in that area.
Is there a motion?
I would. Oh,
Council Carpenter moves as the motion as indicated on circular, seconded by. So Barlow, thank you. Any further discussion before we vote? Being none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Any opposed, nay? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, item 4.7 is the creation of a cemetery reserve fund with Burlington Parks and Rec waterfront, and Cindy is online for us. Hi, Cindy. I assume
Hello
you're
there.
presenting on this.
Hello
Yes.
from North Carolina. It's a lot warmer down here. Catherine, if possible, if you could just move Steve Bashand over to panelist, just in case there's any specific questions. So in brief, you guys received the memo for this, but our cemetery staff came up with an idea of how to set aside money on an annual basis to help replace equipment that they need in the cemetery that they don't need every year. They'd need on, maybe it's every 5 years or every 3 years. And so they proposed adding a fee to full burials to help with that full burial equipment. And this is something we brought to the Cemetery Commission. And the Cemetery Commission approved adding this additional fee that would go into a reserve fund. We worked with the finance director on just a few questions and such that he had to create a policy around it, just to make sure that we that it didn't get spent in any ways inappropriately. A few checks and balances in there. I don't know if anybody has any specific questions. Steve Bashand, Steve's our cemetery and grounds manager. And also Steve came out of I think about 20-year career working at the cemetery before becoming our manager of that team and the grounds team.
Thank you, Cindy, and welcome, Steve. I don't know if you've been to Board of Finance yet, but welcome. Even if you're virtual, welcome.
Thank you.
Are there any questions for Cindy or Steve on this item? Council Carpenter.
Yeah, and I wasn't quite sure on the total, but $50.91 to be exact seems oddly specific and maybe a little bit low if this is an ongoing problem. And I would guess we have less burials than we used to have. So I'm just, it's just a comment. You know, is this adequate?
So that is an addition. I just want to note that's an additional comment on top of the full burial fee. So that wouldn't be, that's not the only cost for a full burial. Steve, I don't know if you know the number off the top of your head for what you charge for a full burial.
I don't have that. I do have that. So for they vary Monday through Friday for a resident is $1,020. And for Saturdays and holidays is $1,700.
Thank you, Steve. Is that all I assume I covered all the days?
Yes. We do have I think we have a winter rate, but that's because they're going through solid ground.
Yeah, of course. Any further questions or comments on this item before we go to a motion? Would anyone like to make a motion? Council Barlow.
I'll make the motion and it's presented on circular.
Okay, it's allowable because we have to keep moving here. Okay, is there a second? Councilman Beezer, thank you. Second by Councilman Beezer. Any further discussion before we vote? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Motion carried unanimously. On to our last deliberative item.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, both of you. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Cindy.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, take care. On to our last item, 4.8, which is a FEMA hazard mitigation grant application for 505 Riverside Avenue with our Department of Permitting and Inspections. Scott, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. I'll be brief. Brief is my specialty.
Great.
So this is a proactive request. We're seeking approval to apply for and if awarded, administer a hazard mitigation grant for 505 Riverside Avenue. This is administered in partnership with Vermont Emergency Management and FEMA. I've done a couple of these so far, and this is another one. 505 Riverside, the short story has been assessed by the Vermont Geological Survey, and the slope has been found to be at risk of slide. Found at imminent risk of slide. The property owners are interested in getting out of it and pursuing this grant. If awarded, the parking lot, small parking lot and structure would be removed. Property would be converted to green space and become city property. Doing that would mitigate any future property losses. That's the short, for detail. Used to be a filling station back in the day that has no petroleum contamination. It's enrolled in the Petroleum Cleanup Fund, which will cover cleanup up to $1 million. As part of our due diligence and seeking this application, the city is going to file a umbrella application in the event that anything else is found to mitigate any liability concerns.
Scott,
Sure.
questions or comments from the board?
Yes, and this, thank you, and this, this came to Duke and unanimously approved, recommended that the council take this action. In the packet, there was a photo, one of the photos was of like of the informal dumping that had happened along a stream bed. Is part of the intent to clean up like the tires and other debris that's sort of strewn along that.
And it's not really part of the grant. I mean, the grant is focused at tearing up the asphalt and getting rid of the building.
Okay, and then doing any remediation of petroleum contamination.
Yeah, the remediation is really focused on the contamination of the soil, and that we can do volunteer cleanup days or other strategies.
That's what I was going to suggest. It's safe enough to be along that slope.
Especially, we've been working with the Winooski Valley Park District and the Intervale Center to discuss what the future use, because it's the gateway to the Intervale. It's the trailhead for the Salmon River, the Salmon Hole Trail. So we are trying to work with our partners to get it back to being, you know, a recreational resource.
Are tires contaminated?
It's just
I told that.
Yeah.
Further questions?
It fell.
It's more stable than some of the other stuff.
Seeing none, is there a motion? Council Barlow?
I will move the action as indicated.
There are three. Yep. Thank you. Council Barlow, is there a second? So Carpenter, thank you. Any further discussion on this item before we vote? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Any opposed, nay? Motion carries unanimously. With no further business, thank you, Scott. I will adjourn the Board of Finance at 6:08 p.m.
So, great. Folks don't want to come upstairs because we're going right back to the executive session.